So a few years ago, I had a very impactful dream that has really stuck with me and has highly inspired a lot of my creative style and vision. My memory of this dream has become somewhat vague over the years, but I do have short little blips of memories of this dream, and everything else I just sort of fill in the blank based on a feeling or just a sort of intuitive sense for what may have been there. I knew as soon as I made my daydream journal that I really wanted to finally make a record of this dream, and I think the best way to do it is through art. So this dream is actually partially what inspired the aesthetic of this entire journal, and I can't wait to walk you through this dream I had and my process of depicting it through my art. I'm not very skilled at painting or drawing, so I searched high and low on Pinterest for some photos that looked and felt very similar to the scenes in my dream. I wanted the spread to kind of flow in the same way I walked through it in my dream, which began by walking through a long hallway, but first I found a photo of this beautiful ornate door, which, by the way, you're going to see lots of these blues and pinks and yellows and golds because those were the main colors in the dream. And hopefully you get a sense for this place that I was in from the photos, but it was very old world European with a touch of cottagecore. I don't even know if those two mix, but somehow they did in my dream. I decided to add some turquoise paint to make the color of the walls a little more accurate to my vision, and I also wanted to darken it up a little bit because this hallway that I walked through was actually quite dark. But before I continue on with my crafting, maybe I should try to explain the whole vibe of the dream. So as I said before, I began walking down a long, narrow corridor in this home. It was completely empty, and it was cold and dark and abandoned. It was like this was once a really bright and lively home, and everyone just up and left years ago. The windows were broken, and nature had started to take over the walls with ivy and tree roots growing all over the walls, and there was dirt and leaves on the cold marble floors. And there was a feeling of dread and longing. Like this was a place I had been to many times before, and it had just been left behind to rot. But it was also a really comforting feeling because this place felt very familiar, like home. Though this photo doesn't even begin to encapsulate what I saw because the dark corridor was more narrow and a lot darker for lack of large windows, there are similar elements such as the wall color and the gilded molding, but the thing that caught my eye in this photo was the dirty floors, which was definitely a huge element in my vision. I had some leftover paint also from before and just used that to paint over this little envelope, which I taped in as a tip-in, and later on I do store some written journaling in the pocket. I chose this beautiful ethereal photo because of the vibrant iridescent colors, and I just love the blurry dreaminess of it. The vision of my dream was nothing like this photo, but it really does give the feeling of what this home was before it was deserted. I imagine this is a much dreamier version of what this place looked like when it was much more full of life and light and happiness. So to take you back into the dream, as I walked to the end of the dark corridor, I came to a small door that led me into a little sunroom. It was so cute. The walls were a pale yellow, and there was a very large window at the far end of the room, much like in this photo here. The only difference in my dream was that the window, of course, had been shattered and trees and vines were taking over the room and dirt collected on the floor. Then I added in a second image along with this little window because I get a sense this place had this kind of style of windows in some places, and I really liked the emphasis of the yellow walls, which were very bright and prominent, unlike the corridor I just walked through. Also, the plants and the wicker furniture just made it all the more accurate to my dream. I started adding some paper leaves to these pages to kind of mimic the leaves on the vines that were growing through the open window, but I eventually decided to remove them and replace them with some stickers of vines because I just liked the color combination a little bit better. I kind of felt like these leaves were just a little bit too bright green for me. I also really wanted to incorporate a teacup or a tea kettle of some sort in addition to that page background because I just felt like the sunroom was definitely a place where a lot of tea was enjoyed. I get the sense this room was a place of solace and just felt really peaceful and comforting. Here I'm adding a couple more elements that just give this opening page more of that homey vibe with the little swiveling key in the corner and the aqua number plate that I sort of just felt like it could have been the house number or something, and also just anything to bring in more of those blue-ish colors. I did add a touch of those green paper leaves under the key there just to add some contrast and not make the whole page so monochromatic, and I think it also kind of leads your eye into the page layers behind it. Then I just poked a little hole in the door and added a gold brad for where the doorknob would be. I just love adding bits of gold anywhere I possibly can, and I think it helps bring forward the gilded molding a little bit more in the image. On some coffee dyed paper, I decided to write a journal entry about the dream and just what it meant to me and how it's influenced my life. I think it's such an amazing idea to write down our dreams, especially the ones that we remember for days or even years after. Now, I do wish I had journaled it sooner because there may be things that I'm forgetting and I might have had more details fresh in my mind at the time. But the most important parts of it stuck with me, so I am glad that I'm writing them down now so that I can reflect back on them someday. Then I totally remembered that I had been pondering about the garden of this place. This part was not in my dream from what I can recall, but I've imagined what would have been just outside that large window in the sunroom, and this photo that I found on Pinterest I thought depicted it very well. I love the huge rose trellises and the arches with the stone pathway. The way my heart opens up when I imagine walking through such a beautiful place like this. Ugh, how dreamy. So that is it. That is my very special and sacred dream that I have finally translated onto paper. This dream definitely opened me up to a part of my soul that I'm not exactly consciously aware of, and it's stuck with me for these past few years for a reason. I don't know what that reason is, but I do know that I feel really good when I reflect on the dream, and I am grateful for how it's influenced my style of crafting. Please let me know in the comments. Have you ever had a dream like this before where you visited an unfamiliar yet familiar place? I'd love to know if you have and how that dream has influenced your life in any way. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed journaling with me today, and until next time, I am sending you so much love and big hugs. Bye.